Ethiopia is a museum of different nations, nationalities and peoples. It is also a diverse nation in terms of culture, language and religion. Such diversities were not celebrated by the past Ethiopian regimes. They were denied the right to develop and enrich their cultures, languages and history, among others. Despite the oppression and repression that the peoples of Ethiopia
federalism is not a luxury thing
under the
for
feudal
Ethiopia.
and totalitarian
it is the
regimes,
only solution in addressing the inequalities used to be seen in the past regimes. The system recognizes the identities of the Ethiopian nations, nationalities and peoples. This does not mean that the system is a medicine for every problem. It is all about sharing power between the federal and state governments.
The unitary government that has prevailed in the country before 1991 has never considered the political, cultural, and economic interests of the nations,
need to be balanced based on the constitution. The country suffered from ethnic conflicts and civil war during the Derg regime just before 1991. By then, the country was on the verge of disintegration. Federalism is not a luxury thing for Ethiopia. The nation from it is collapsing. The only solution in addressing the inequalities used to be seen in the past regimes. The system recognizes the identities of the Ethiopian nations, nationalities and peoples. This does not mean that the system is a medicine for every problem. It is all about sharing power between the federal and state governments. The federal system comprises of two organs, the federal government and states. The power exercised by both the federal and the state governments need to be balanced based on the constitution. The country suffered from ethnic conflicts and civil war during the Derg regime just before 1991. By then, the country was on the verge of disintegration. The current federal system has saved the nation from collapsing.
Federalism really, it may have so many different meanings for so many different places or countries, but in Ethiopia today, knowing the background and where we started and where we are going now, it shows that every Ethiopian feels.
The reason is it is difficult to manage them by the single centralized and unitary government. Federalism is important for countries with diversity and large land size.
Following the demise of the Derg regime, the Ethiopian nations, nationalities and peoples, through their representatives, have ratified a new democratic constitution in December 1995. The constitution gives equal recognition for all types of diversities in the country. This is what happened for the first time in the long history of Ethiopia.
ፌደራል ስርዓት ለሰፊ የሆኑ አገሮች በህዝብ
Federalism is important for countries with diversity and large land size. The reason is it is difficult to manage them by the single centralized and unitary government.
The national renaissance will be inevitable. So that's why the motto, the constitution, as our diversity, the diversity creates unity. That unity really brings the renaissance of Ethiopian.
The newly adopted constitution has paved the way for the formation of federal system that have a federal and 9 state governments. For Ethiopia, federalism is the only tool in which the country could accommodate its diversity and avoid conflicts among nations, nationalities and peoples.
Federalism is not associating with conflict, rather it is an instrument to resolve conflicts. Because especially countries having diverse societies may choose federalism as a form of system of governance to maintain unity. Okay, so by avoiding the existing conflicts. For instance, let's take Ethiopian experience. So Ethiopia, why choose Ethiopia federalism? It was in the civil war, it was a protracted conflict before 1991. Rather, establishing a sustainable and peaceful governance system is very important goal. So to achieve this goal, and then to respond the existing questions. Especially there was a national question in the Ethiopian political system, which was a long-standing question and demands by nationalities. So to recognize the diversities of the country's situation, whether that is nationality or ethnic based or language, religion, and so on. To accommodate this, federalism was a very important instrument by allowing self-government to nationalities of the people, and then maintaining unity by implementing the shared rule political system of the country. So it is an instrument to avoid conflict rather to instigate conflict.
ፌዴራሊዝም እንደ ስርዓት አገርን አይበትንም።
Federalism does not disintegrate countries, and it is not a cause for conflicts. It is an instrument in which diversities are fully recognized and given due respect.
In federalism, when we talk about unity, that unity should accommodate diversities, the existing diversities. And then it should also allow self-governance, system of self-governance to the grassroots. Particularly, regional states should be empowered.
The institutionalization of the federal system has brought a democratic unity that celebrates diversity. The Ethiopian federalism is not based only on language and ethnicity as many people claim. The country's federal arrangement has taken into account the history, economic relations, and the settlement patterns of the peoples of Ethiopia.
As to me, Ethiopia's federal system is not purely based on ethnic line, as it has some elements of geographic federalism. If the nation has so far achieved a number of all-rounded progresses from the system, in this regard, it has been able to build various federal, democratic, and human rights institutions along with fantastic and vibrant constitution. However, the country has been facing the problem of implementation. To address the challenges in this regard and make the federal system more strong, the institutions need to be stronger and discharge their responsibilities based on the power granted to them by the Constitution.
Shared national identity.
ብዙ የፌደራል ተቋማት ገንብተናል። ክልሎችም አላቸው፣ የፌደራል መንግስትም አለ።
The nation has so far achieved a number of all-rounded progresses from the system. In this regard, it has been able to build various federal, democratic, and human rights institutions along with fantastic and vibrant constitution. However, the country has been facing the problem of implementation. To address the challenges in this regard and make the federal system more strong, the institutions need to be stronger and discharge their responsibilities based on the power granted to them by the Constitution.
It saved my country from disintegrity, and it brought peace and sustainable development. So federalism for Ethiopia, it's fundamental shift and fundamental change from a dark situation to a bright and a long sustainable development track.
Based on the 1995 Ethiopian Constitution, the House of People's Representatives and House of Federation have been formed with their own specific tasks.
The Ethiopian federal system adopts a unique feature of second chamber. House of Federation is responsible to interpret the Constitution, but it is not the feature of other federations. Okay, rather involving in lawmaking process is the main feature of all federations. The other important point is, because of this responsibility, the House of Federation does not involve or actively involve in lawmaking process. Okay, so the Parliament or the lower house is solely responsible to, enact or promulgate laws of the country. So this is one of the important unique features of the Ethiopian Federation. The House is also represented, or it is representative institutions of nationalities of Ethiopia directly. That means the second house, or House of Federation, does not represent regional states. In other federations, the second house is a representative institution of regional states or provinces, whatever they name. When it comes to Ethiopian federal system, sovereign power resides on nationalities and peoples of Ethiopia. But in other federations, you may find this sovereign power at the hand of the parliament or at the hand of the Congress. Okay, this makes also a unique feature.
Article 39 of the Constitution talk about the rights of nations, nationalities and peoples of Ethiopia. The article is famous among opposition and academic circles because it gives full right to people of the country, which includes the right to self-determination up to secession. This is seen as a guarantee of Ethiopian nations, nationalities and peoples who feel hurt by the previous regimes. Besides, it is a cornerstone to the democratization of the country.
The Ethiopian Constitution, the federal constitution and the federal system adopts secession clause. Self-determination up to secession is allowed in the Ethiopian federal system, but in other federations you can't find nowadays. Of course, the previous times in USSR and Yugoslavia, these kinds of clauses were part of their constitution.
Based on the Constitution, the states were able to establish their respective autonomous governments. Each state government includes a state council, the highest organ of state authority, and a state administration, the highest organ of executive power. The state council is the highest political authority. It defines the state's policy and has all legislative, executive and judiciary powers regarding the state.
The new constitution has come up with a federal framework, as a result of which each state, all the states have their own justice systems, which means they have their own court systems, they have their own police institutions, they have their own prosecution institutions, and of course they do have their own prison administration as well. And as a result of this arrangement, I think the basic result of this is justice has become close, and in my opinion, our justice, our judiciaries, our courts are more independent than they were ever before. Not only in practical terms, but also in normative terms, in terms of legal framework. If one compares the Constitution as the legal framework, the level of independence in the Constitution, in the current Constitution, and compare it with the Constitution, with the three constitutions we had in our history.
The formation of the 9 states set the basis not only for the decentralization of state power, but had also ushered a wide range of opportunities for nations, nationalities and peoples living in the federal states. The development of ultra-modern communication systems and road networks are the fruits of a new federal system. This has helped not only to enhance the rapid economic development of the nation, but was also instrumental in strengthening the democratic unity and cooperation that is already flourishing among the peoples of Ethiopia.
Our system is introducing 2 huge things, as I can say. That means democratic system of governance and federalism. These 2 things are very different. You can exercise federalism without adopting democratic system, but it is highly associated with democratic system of governance. Without having such kinds of democratic system of governance, you can't apply federalism as the principles set there. Unity can be maintained through accommodating diversities. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are 2 views, of course. One whatever the situation is, unity must be come in whatever sacrification. So they believe that one people, one flag, one language, one culture, and so on and so on. So establishing such kinds of unity is not, proper to the people of the country.
The Ethiopian federal system has put in place a system in which possible conflicts could be resolved in the democratic and legal platform through the House of Federation and the Council of Constitutional Inquiry. Today, Ethiopia's federal system has become a model for several African countries. In this regard, Somalia and Sudan are desirous to learn from Ethiopia and implement in their respective countries. The Ethiopian federal system has enabled the nations, nationalities and peoples in the country to freely practice their culture and promote their heritages through various media platforms and arts. The Nations, Nationalities and Peoples Day, which is annually celebrated on December 8, is crowded with various socio-economic and political achievements that has been registered with unreserved cooperation of nations, nationalities and peoples of the country. The celebration of the day sends a clear message to the world that Ethiopia has entered a new era in which diversity is seen as an asset instead of a threat. This will definitely cement unity among the people.
That colorful celebration has a big objective behind. That objective was to create